Hello, welcome to Discovering Buddhism. My name's Alan. I'm presenting this course on behalf of Vajrayana Institute, a meditation centre in Sydney, which is part of the FPMT organisation. So hopefully I hope you're well, first of all, and thank you for being there, either live or watching the YouTube replay video. I usually just warn people that sometimes the stream is interrupted, but usually the voice keeps going. But sometimes, because it's kind of peak hour here, 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock is quite busy on the internet, and sometimes the flow or the streaming gets a bit fuzzy. So anyway, we'll do our best, and we'll start this interesting topic tonight of how to meditate. So it flows on from the last topic we did, which is mind and its potential. So even if you haven't done mind and potential, it's okay. You can probably pick up most of the content of this course. 4 weeks we do, an hour and a half each Monday, 6 o'clock. So I just wrote we've got this chat column on the right-hand side. I hope you've got it. I've got it, which has been missing for the last few weeks. But the chat column's there, so I put my name and my email address in case you're new and you want to join the email group, which means you'll get the notes every week for the topic and the course notes for the whole course. So if you want to join in and be a regular participant, just send me an email. Or if you've got any questions that come up because of this YouTube medium, there's no really opportunity for question and answers. If you put a question up, I might be able to answer it during the class, or else maybe next week if it's a longer sort of question. So hopefully you've got the notes and the course outline. And so there's the reading, the course outline on a page, and then there's the readings, which are selected extracts from teachers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche are the teachers, the main teachers in this particular topic that we've got teachings from. I think we normally start each class with a brief breathing meditation. I'll maybe make it a bit shorter today because we're going to do a breath meditation at the end of the class, a longer breath meditation. So if you would like to get comfortable, we'll just start our mindfulness practice using the breath. This is to calm us down and get us in right frame of mind to think of do some meditation and study the teachings, the amazing teachings of the Buddha. Okay, so get comfortable. Okay, we always just begin with checking our mind, our motivation, spending a moment to think how fortunate we are to come together and do some study of the teachings, listen to the teachings, do some meditation. Just think that we're now leaving our busy day behind. Time to look inwards, our inner world, our mind, time to take care of our minds. We're doing these practices not just for our own benefit, but in order to benefit those around us, and also the big picture motivation is to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. or living beings. So now just check our body. We can be lying down, we could be sitting on a chair or on the floor. The main thing is we're comfortable. Just spend a brief moment scanning the body to check our shoulders relaxed. The neck's relaxed, the face and the eyes are relaxed. Feel the weight of our body on the floor or the chair. Feel that we're being held by the surface. And then gradually give more attention to our breathing, how the breath enters and leaves the body. Nothing to change, just watching the breath. We can focus on the breath at the nostrils or lower down at the abdomen as it rises and falls, whatever's the most comfortable. And when we find that comfortable position, rest our mind right there on the breath. Our focus is on the breath, but there will always be thoughts distracting our object. Our focus on the breath, and when that happens, we notice the thoughts, just check, see the mind's distracted, let go of those thoughts and just come back to the breath again and again. Just stay with the breath, full flow of the in-breath, the full flow of the out-breath. Okay, just relax your concentration. Okay, just looking at the course outline there. So we've got 4 weeks to look at this big topic of how to meditate. But of course, we'll be coming back to these points later in the course when we study other topics, because meditation is part of the whole course. And at the end of each teaching on each Monday night, I'll do a guided meditation on a particular topic that relates to the topic that we've just done, so that we get some experience of the teachings as well as just the intellectual content of the teachings. So tonight's just basically introductory, looking at what meditation is and what the mind is. So if you were watching for the last module, Mind and Its Potential. So we use some of that knowledge we got from what the mind is to apply it and help understand what meditation is, and how it's possible to change the mind. How it's not just a dream, somebody's new age idea. It's actually possible, and it being done not just by Shakyamuni Buddha, 500 BC, who became enlightened under the Bodhi tree, but it's also possible, it's being done by other beings. Many people have become enlightened both before and after Shakyamuni Buddha, and we have that potential ourselves. If not in this life, then we can lay the groundworks for more practice in future life. So we look basically the definitions and meanings, and also the body posture. We're looking at the type of meditation that we've just done, mindfulness practice, in a bit more detail. And then we'll do maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute session at the end on breath awareness, and that'll conclude the teachings. Then next week we look at some obstacles to meditation and a bit more advice on how to do our sessions. Then we look at motivation and look at analytical meditation in week 3. And then week 4 we combine these 2 types of meditation, mindfulness and analytical, and a bit of everything else. But this is just a loose, I tend not always to stick to exactly the topics that are there. It's just a guide. So also just looking at the readings, recommended readings. As usual, there's course readings, the readings for this module. They're good, and if you've got not much time, I just recommend just read the course readings, because they've got terrific teachings on meditation by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and Lama Yeshe. And there's some also teachings by Kathleen MacDonald that I sent you. It's like a transcript of Kathleen's. Kathleen's also known as Sangye Kadra, that's her ordained name. So she's very senior nun in the FPMT organisation, and she's written this book called How to Meditate, which is apparently one of the biggest sellers of the of books on meditation by Wisdom Publications. Never been out of print for 20 or 30 years. And so if you want to just go a bit deeper and buy a book, hard copy or digital, How to Meditate, a practical guide. That's Kathleen MacDonald's book. So that's excellent. I've also mentioned there Alan Wallace's teachings. Alan Wallace is probably one of the world's best or most well-known teachers on this kind of mindfulness shamatha meditation. Shamatha is the more formal name, the Sanskrit name for meditation on a single object. So that's a course he gave in Sydney 2019 at 7 days, and it's a free podcast which is on the Vajrayana Institute website. So there's a link there that should take you to that podcast, and I think over 7 days there's 4 sessions in real time. Each session's probably between 1 and 2 hours. So it's quite deep. It's a very intense meditation course on mindfulness, but you could just try it, and you'll get a taste of Alan Wallace's teachings. Then there's 2 other books there that were on the list, which I'm not completely familiar with. Loving Kindness by Sharon Salzberg, very well-known meditation teacher. In the she's what group is she connected with? I'll think of it in a minute. She's not in the FPMT group, she's in another group. And then there's another book that's written, which is a more general book that covers meditation, relaxation, concentration by Joel and Michelle Levy. That's quite a good book. It's less Buddhist. It covers more traditions, different types of meditation. That's worth a look too. So there's plenty of readings. So just looking at class notes for today, just the purpose of meditation. Why do we do meditation? Well, why do we do Buddhism, I suppose, is connected up with that question. And everyone might have a different reason as to why they become interested in meditation. And maybe there's just a crisis in your life, and there's or something happens and we need to calm the mind. Might be a traumatic event. So it could be just general dissatisfaction, or just questioning what's the meaning of all this hoo-ha in the Western world. That was really the reason I went to India in the 80s to look for meaning of life, I suppose, and ended up luckily going to Nepal and meeting Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa at Kopan, at monastery there in Nepal, Kathmandu, and listening to the Buddhist teaching. So it was the beginning of my contact with Buddhism. And so ever since then, I've been interested and been studying and trying to meditate. So even I was just thinking the topic is how to meditate. So definitely you won't be a perfect meditator at the end of this 4 weeks course, but you'll have some tools or some idea of how to start meditating. I think if you really can meditate perfectly, you'd probably be enlightened and you wouldn't need to do the course at all. So it's actually a practice, I guess. So it's something that you never completely finish until you don't have to meditate. You can become a fully enlightened being, which is possible, and become a Buddha. The mind becomes Buddha mind. But in the meantime, there's different ways, many different teachings on different types of meditation and so on. So just if you want a good sort of summary of what meditation is, if you look at the course, the readings, page 21, it's called A Short Teaching on Calm Abiding. I think this is done by Kathleen MacDonald, but she quotes His Holiness the Dalai Lama for a teaching on what, I'll just quote, it's one paragraph. So His Holiness says, when we speak about meditation, what do we mean by meditation? meditation is a discipline where you cultivate certain familiarity with a chosen object of meditation. Generally, the problem is that our normal day-to-day life, in our unreflected states of mind, generally we let ourselves be under the control and domination of our mind. And our mind comes under the domination of afflictive emotions and thoughts. That's the scattered mind. And because of this, then it leads to influencing our states of mind on the whole to be overwhelmed by destructive and negative emotions and thoughts, which then perpetuates the whole cycle of problems, confusion, suffering, and so on. So this lack of control of our mind, this is another point Lama Zopa makes in his teaching on how to meditate. He says, we've got a body, we've got a mind, but we have very little control over what happens to particularly the mind. What are we seeking in our spiritual practice what we are seeking is to reverse that cycle of confusion, suffering, and so on, so that gradually we'll be in a position to take charge of our mind and prevent the mind from coming under the domination and influence of our negative impulses and thoughts. The way in which we do this is to engage in a constant discipline of cultivation of familiarity with a chosen object, so that we'll be able to gain a certain stability of mind, where we have the capacity to place our mind and allow it to abide single-pointedly with a degree of stability upon a certain chosen object. So His Holiness there is talking about this particular type of meditation. It's called calm abiding, where we choose an object. In our introductory meditation, we chose the breath, and we place our attention on the breath. So this is what he means by obtaining familiarity with an object. So the breath meditation is just one type. We don't have to use the breath. Probably in Tibetan Buddhism, the most traditional, the one that's used the most in more advanced practices would be visualization. We visualize a certain object. Usually it's an object such as the Buddha, but it doesn't have to be a holy object, but that's probably the most common sort of object to visualize. So that's a different type of meditation where you use visualization. So we probably won't get to use that one in this particular introductory topic, but we'll refer to it probably. So I like Lama Zopa's definition. He just says meditation is primarily caring for the mind. So he often uses this phrase, caring for the mind, which means that it's like it evokes the feeling that you're caring for something very precious, like a baby, like something that needs caring for, and that we often neglect because we're so distracted by what's happening out there in the world, the job, relationship, the distractions, the news, the good news, the bad news, the pleasures, the sports, and so on. So this caring for the mind, where it also suggests that this is very important part of our being human, and that the mind needs caring for. And the more we take care of the mind and develop its potential, then the more we progress along the path to having a better mind, with the ultimate possibility of becoming a fully enlightened mind. That's the Buddha mind. So we've got this incredible body with a human brain. We've got this incredible opportunity now. We're born in this country where all the teachings, all the teachings of the Buddha are now available to us without any mistakes or any omissions that lead us on the path to full enlightenment. Everything's there. And we've got teachers, great teachers like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe, and so on. So many teachers who are there to guide us. And we've got so much Dharma, which means the actual written teachings, or could be through multimedia, all available. And this has only happened in the last probably 50 years, since Tibet was invaded by the Chinese, and the great tradition of Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism was taken from, or still in Tibet in some form, but it was transferred to the West by these great teachers coming to the West, and some of them teaching Westerners who are interested in the teaching. And so this proliferation of Buddhism is now, through many Western countries. So that's the loss of Tibet, of their religion there, is the gain of the Western world, if we're lucky enough to come across these teachings. So Lama Zopa says the true purpose of meditation is enlightenment. Even though we might be interested in meditation because we've got a headache, or we've heard about mindfulness, a doctor has recommended it. A doctor has recommended it. Western medicine is now recommending mindfulness meditation. In fact, all doctors, I think, in Australia and many in the Western world are taught meditation as part of their training. This has only happened recently. And so that's not that context is not in the bigger picture of attaining enlightenment. So if we're looking at meditation in the Buddhist context, Tibetan Buddhist context, we're thinking that what it means to become enlightened, becoming fully, the mind completely purified and refined to its maximum potential, which is unlimited. So that's, we saw in the teachings on the last module, Mind's Potential, the idea of enlightenment is the mind that is omniscient, that can know everything. And it's the potential of our own mind can know everything. Not all powerful, can't sort of transmit teachings, transplant teachings into other people's mind, but omniscient in the sense that can understand all phenomena, how things exist, can understand others' minds and know how to benefit others' minds by giving teachings and so on. So omniscient and also compassionate. So the Tibetan, two wings of the bird in Tibetan Buddhism to take us to enlightenment: wisdom and compassion. Wisdom, understanding the nature of reality, our own reality, the outside world, and also developing this compassion mind. Compassion meaning wishing to benefit all other beings as well as ourselves. So not doing the practices just for our own benefit, but also to help benefit other beings. So this is the Mahayana motivation. So just looking at the Tibetan word gom means to become familiar with something. So as I just explained with the Dalai Lama's quotation there, when we're doing our practice of meditation using something simple like the breath, the mind is using that object to focus its energies. So normally the distracted mind, which we can sometimes see during the day when we're thinking something and then we get distracted and so on, is very easily distracted from one thing to the other. So we need to, what mindfulness meditation does is to channel, we can't stop the thoughts. The thoughts will still be there, but by giving the mind something very simple to do, like watching the breath, a simple task, so simple that it's very difficult. It's almost too simple for the mind to want to do. It gets bored. But just focusing on something like the breath means that the other peripheral distractions gradually dissipate. And so we can actually feel, if we have some success in our meditation, that stillness of mind. The breath, we can notice the breath is always happening there, and then we feel this subduing of the everyday thoughts, the chit-chat, internal chit-chat dialogue that's going. And that can give a great sense of peace. So as I've got there, and this is what another person I'll maybe read a little quote from is Lama Yeshe, who is probably a little bit less formal than His Holiness the Dalai Lama in telling us why we need to meditate. He says, if you want to do something positive with your life, to find satisfaction, to find happiness and joy, instead of depression and misery, to overcome the feeling that our nature is totally negative, and to make our life useful to all beings, we need a method that is at least as powerful as the endless confused materialistic energies we so often get caught up in. He says that philosophical ideas, no matter how grand, are not strong enough to help us in our present crisis. They may look convincing at first, but they quickly evaporate. So what we need, he says, is something active, something powerful, something direct. What we need are the tools of meditation. So I like that quote. It's very practical. Something that's not just theory, but something that will actually is action, something that will make a difference to us. Because, this is another paragraph, won't be too long, because your mind is obscured at the moment, you don't know what your true net potential is. You try your best, you may surprise yourself. Whenever negative thoughts about your capacity arise, be brave and think to yourself, whether I'm completely successful or not, at least I'll try to gain some experience. It could happen that your attempts at meditation have been full of distraction, and suddenly some potential ripens, giving you the surprising ability to make enormous use of the tools of meditation. So this encouraging word telling us to persevere. We may not have perfect good sessions every time we meditate, but if we get some taste of the stillness of the mind, that sense of being able to focus the mind, calm the mind, then we should be happy and be encouraged. So he also, from the readings, what we're starting off from, what they're saying is that we're starting off, we haven't done any meditation, and our unsubdued mind, the mind as it is before we come across meditation and try, is this sense of looking outwards for satisfaction and getting disappointed. And so Lama Yeshe also says that if we're in an angry state of mind, for instance, so this will tend to affect our effectiveness in the world. It'll make us feel bad. No one wants to be angry and really enjoys it. And so we can just look at what a negative state of mind will have a negative effect, like anger, on our effect on ourselves and on others. And so turning outside to blame others when things go wrong turning outside for the brief satisfaction we get from, say, short-term things like entertainment, food, so on. These things give some satisfaction, some relief, but if we look carefully, we'll see that they're not going to last, those sort of things, and we need to look at internally, what's happening internally, the mind itself. So how can meditation actually help the mind and help us remember back to our classes in mind and its potential, that we saw that the mind is not the body. Okay, so in Buddhist philosophy, the mind exists, but we can't actually see it. It's not the brain. The brain is like a container that the mind sits in when we have a human life. So we can use the facilities of the brain, a great organ that allows us to reason and to remember and so on. But the mind itself is not the body. This is quite important, very important point in Buddhist teaching. So if it's not the body, it doesn't come from the body. So it didn't come from the parents when we were conceived. And the definition of mind is something that is completely unmaterialistic. So it's clear. They use the word clear. It means invisible. But it also has the power to know things. A bit like a lens of a camera. It's perfectly clean. You can't actually see a perfectly clear piece of glass, but it can apprehend what comes in front of it, in front of the lens and going. So another example is the mirror, which is completely clear if you've got a clean mirror, and doesn't reflect anything, but if something walks in front of the mirror, it will reflect that. So if you think of the mind in a similar way, there's this ability to receive the signals of the senses, what we see, hear, and so on, taste, and also the signals from our thinking. So the mind can actually reflect our emotions, our feelings, and so on, our memories, our images. So this amazing thing called the human mind is without beginning or end. So this, of course, one moment of mind is called our previous moment of mind. So this is the reasoning that we use to get some feeling that the mind that we had, say, as a child, has brought us to this point as an adult. It's like a river, one moment of mind leading to the next. So this infinite chain of cause and effect, that moment of mind causes the next, and that causes the next. So if we accept that, then we can think that logically there could have been a mind before this life. Because the mind at the time we were conceived in our mother's womb came from somewhere. And so using reasoning, logic, we can see that it makes sense for that moment of mind coming from the previous life. And similarly, this moment of mind will go to tomorrow's mind, tonight's mind, and to next week's mind, and to the mind that we have at the time we pass away, leave this body. Then that moment of mind will go to the next life. And if we've practiced, if we've done what the Buddha has done and done perfect practice, his mind became enlightened at that time, and so he had perfect control. So if we've not ready, if we can't get enlightened in this life, then we need to prepare the mind in a positive way in this life, so that we can have all the right conditions to continue our practice in the next life. So just that sort of thing, we did that meditation in the mind subject of continuity of consciousness, and so this is what I'm just revising here, this idea. And I think if my mind at this stage is linked to the next moment of mind, then we've got the opportunity to put positive thoughts, imprints, practices, purifications, and so on, to cause the next moment of mind, the next one, to have that positive imprint on them. So we can, the fact that we can do some meditation, take control, or more control of the mind than we've got now, means that we're going to be setting the stage for a peaceful mind into the future. What we do now will affect what happens next, and next, and next, and so on. So it's feasible that we can purify the mind. We're also told that in the teachings that there's this sense that the mind itself is like the sky, limitless, and it's not identified with all the negative states of mind we've got. The clouds don't actually become the sky. So this is a very useful image of clouds and the sky itself. The mind, this is called Buddha nature. The potential of the mind to become enlightened is there in all beings, not just in human beings, even animals and so on. So these things that are stopping us from stopping the mind from being kind, compassionate, patient, and so on, ephemeral, and they can be purified, and they can be changed. So from the impatient mind can become the patient, and mind, the angry mind can become the compassionate mind. So this simple definition of what's a positive and negative state of mind is what will produce happiness for us and for others in the future. That will be positive states of mind, and negative states will bring unhappy results in the future. So I think one of the things, something just occurred to me, this is a little story. If you may have been watching some of the podcasts that Lama Zopa, who's the head of the FBMT organisation, a great practitioner, and he's teaching online in Kopan Monastery in Kathmandu quite often. And there was every few days some of the teachings are put online, and we get an email. If you want to receive those, you can actually subscribe to the FPMT. Go to the FPMT website and get the weekly updates. But there's this one particular very moving picture of Lama Zopa saying prayers and mantras to a buffalo. So Lama Zopa takes great interest in animals, and he's set up an animal refuge near the monastery, and invites people to sponsor animals who are going to be otherwise killed, and sometimes he sponsors them himself. And he I think was walking around in Stupa at Kathmandu and saw a buffalo that was going to be slaughtered, and found the owner and bought the buffalo and brought it back to the animal shelter. And as he does with rescued animals, he says prayers to them, and it could be quite extensive prayers for maybe hours. And I think in this particular case, he spent quite a few hours saying mantras and prayers to this buffalo. And the buffalo, incredibly, moved towards, as he started the prayers, moved towards Lama Zopa and lay right down in front of him and stretched his head right up to almost touching Lama Zopa's lap. And as Lama Zopa recited the prayers, tears were coming out of the buffalo's eyes. Extraordinary. You can see them in the photo. So this is, I guess, how does it relate to meditation? Well, the power of a pure mind to influence even animals, and all that compassion and skill, knowing what the best thing to do, and the best sort of mantras and so on to recite to the buffalo. Anyway, it's very moving. Wonderful. So, how does meditation fit into all the other Buddhist practices? So if mindfulness is very popular in the West at the moment, particularly in the wellness industry, so what modern medicine and modern psychology has done is they've taken this tradition of mindfulness, and it's not purely Buddhist. Mindfulness meditation existed before Buddhism in the Hindu tradition in India, and so it's incorporated into different. I think I've heard that it's possible there was some mindfulness practice in early Christian teachings as well. Not an expert at that one, but so the mindfulness practice in Buddhism is within the context of all the Buddhist teachings. So it's not just like a psychological tool to calm down. It can be very useful for that. It's not necessarily going to cure mental illness in the Western sense. So it can actually help with people feeling more comfortable, getting over some anxiety and so on. And definitely has some success at that if it's done, taught well and practiced well. But that's fairly recent that Western psychology medicine has seen the usefulness of it. But this sort of mindfulness that we're studying in Buddhism is in a bigger context. Okay, it can calm us and make us feel better, but it's also in the context that in learning Tibetan Buddhism and practicing, there are three different activities that we engage in: listening, thinking, and meditating. Listening, contemplating, meditating. So the listening is to hear teachings, and that can include reading. So it's not just listening orally. It could be listening to great teachers. Nowadays we've got so much multimedia, we can hear the Dalai Lama teaching quite often, and to the whole world from his temple in Dharamsala. So it can cover hearing great teachers teaching and reading their teachings. So this is similar to what we'd be doing if we were going to lectures at university. We go to lectures and we hear the theory, and then we take it further than that. In university, we might just be asked to regurgitate or explain what we've heard, do a bit more research, and just stick to the intellectual side. But in Buddhism, we've got two other things: thinking, contemplating whether those teachings we've listened to or read make sense to us, whether we can accept them. So, for instance, if we hear a teaching that everything in the physical world is impermanent and everything in our mental world is impermanent as well. So we hear a statement like that. So the next thing, for us to contemplate whether that can be true or not. So we can look at things like the outside world, how things change in our everyday life, particularly our body, and see how that's changing and aging. We can look at how cars and appliances, how they don't stay new and work perfectly, they actually age and deteriorate. And then we can look at our minds, particularly our minds, and see how from moment to moment what's happening in our mind is changing, and how we have ups and downs, and happy minds, sad minds, neutral mind, sleeping mind. So we can use thinking and reasoning with the human brain to check the truth of a particular teaching point. And the last one is meditation, to actually contemplate in a very centered way that particular truth of impermanence. So this is called analytical meditation. So this is a slightly different type of meditation where we're using reasoning to contemplate. Maybe we're doing a death meditation, which is the impermanence of the body. And this is something we do sometimes in drop-in meditation. We might do later in the course, where we think about how impermanent the body is, how causes and obstacles there are for the body to stay alive, and the certainty that there will come a time when the body will die and the mind will leave the body, and that uncertainty of the time of death, and that what will help, the only thing that will help, will be our state of mind at the time of death. So these sort of points that we've listened to, we've thought about, then we use meditation to stop and allow that sort of point to integrate with the mind, like absorbed. We take it in, taking that point. So that's called analytical meditation. So one of the great uses of the mindfulness meditation, where we're taking an object and just resting our mind on the object, the breath and so on, is that produces this very sharp, calm mind, the mind that can actually be very powerful. And we can use that sharpness and calmness to rest in the meditation, on the analytical meditation, on this particular thing that we're meditating on. So this is called Vipassana. So the mindfulness meditation in Sanskrit is shamatha, resting the mind on one object, and then using that sharpness of mind to, like a knife cutting into reality of things, how things are, is called Vipassana. So that's what basically I've outlined there at the bottom of page 3, these two types of meditation, and just terminology. So many different words can be used to describe this mindfulness meditation. I'm using the more popular term by mindfulness. So it can also be called single-pointed meditation. It's a good one because it actually says, it describes this like a spear, the sharpness of that mind, single-pointed meditation. Calm abiding, calmly resting on this particular, whatever object we've chosen. Concentration meditation, shamatha, or placement meditation, placing the mind on one thing. These are all interchangeable. So this meditation brings together our mental energies from being scattered to focused, and this, they often use the term meditative absorption, so the mind can absorb into a particular state of concentration. And then there's that wonderful quote there from one of the Buddhist sutras, where they use this analogy of the hot season in India, where the wind and dust is swirling around before the rain season comes, and then the rain cloud, the water, suddenly quells all that dust and calms down those dusty winds. So they're using very much the climate in India to describe how mindfulness meditation can quell the scattered thoughts. So another good analogy is a bottle of muddy water that is more shaken up in our agitated mind, and we let the muddy water just rest. That means we don't energize that scattered thought process, and eventually the sediment of muddy water will subdue it, leaving clean, clear water. And so the sediment, our scattered mind, using our concentration meditation, can calm the scattered thoughts and leave this sense of stillness, clean, clear, undisturbed mind. So that's what we can get a taste of when we're doing mindfulness practice. So we may not get it every session, but might get a glimpse of that stillness of the natural, what Alan Wallace calls resting the mind in its natural state. resting the body, speech and mind in its natural state. He often starts each meditation with that, but the body, of course, is too comfortable and relaxed. The speech is, of course, required, but it also refers to our inner speech, not chasing more scattered thoughts and just resting the mind, and then the mind itself taking the aspect of stillness. So the objects that we can choose to use, coming back to shamatha meditation or mindfulness meditation, we can choose any object. So the breath is always the easiest one because it's very physical, so we usually start with that. But we can also use thoughts, that we can use sound. We might be able to do a meditation with sound in the next few weeks, where we use the physical sense of sound, particularly if we do have sounds either in the room, annoying traffic, or that might have good and pleasant or unpleasant sounds, but we just focus our awareness on sounds, what's happening in that arena of sound, without judging. So that's the thing, rather than having like or don't like and so on. Hi Amy, I've just read your message. Good to see you there. Fantastic. So the object could be sensory awareness, what we see, what we hear. We don't usually use taste because it's too complicated. Usually we're not eating when we meditate. So it could be the sense of touch, which includes breathing, but it also includes the skin, hot and cold feeling, and the clothing on our skin, and the aches and pains in the body. So that can be another object of meditation. And the other one, more subtle, is thoughts themselves. So the activity of consciousness itself. So this is something we might try next week, where we make thoughts the object. So instead of focusing on the physical breath and not suppressing the thoughts, but just ignore, trying to let them pass, we actually welcome thoughts, and we welcome them from the point of view of just watching what's going to come into the mind. It could be an image of something that happened today, it could be a feeling, emotion, it could be some sort of song that we can't get out of our head. So we look at the thoughts, but again, from a bystander that's not particularly interested in following them, or we're not feeding them, we're not chasing them with any great interest, just allowing the thoughts to enter. And by noticing each thought, they actually lose their power. So another Alan Wallace analogy is like when the mind is alert, watching for the thought coming into the mind. It's a bit like when we're looking at a mouse coming, that has a hole in the wall in the room, and the mouse starts to come out, and then they see that we're watching it, and they quickly run back in. I like that one. So the thoughts, you'll notice this by experience when we do it, that just by noticing the thought loses its energy and power. And as long as we're not hooking onto that thought and seeing where it goes, that's really what normally happens with our distracted mind. We're completely sort of going from one thought to the other. So it's just like the little mouse that's popping out and noticing that we're looking at the thought, then it'll run back in. And so this is amazingly what happens with mindfulness of thoughts. We're not trying to stop or suppress the thoughts, just noticing them can evaporate them back into the mind. Okay, so I'm just looking at the notes, how we're going just not sort of, just a couple of things there on page 4 about dispelling myths. Just looking at those are quite useful. And I think I would have got these from Kathleen MacDonald's teachings. It's her transcript of teachings, which is really excellent, which you've got digital copy of. So first of all, think the myth that the mind is always going to be difficult and I'm never going to be able to meditate. I'm always going to be a distracted person. So dispelling that myth that that the mind is I should have put the mind is unchangeable there, I suppose. So that myth we can easily dispel by some of the things that we're told about the impermanence of the mind, how the mind can change, and the Buddha potential of the mind. Meditation is not aimed at having fantastical experiences. So we're not looking at having clairvoyance. That's not the object. Or you'll see if you do some readings that there are some, as people progress and develop their practice to a high level, then they can have some sense, some of these experiences of feeling that they can fly or read other people's minds and so on. I think Lama Zopa might have said something like that in one of the extracts in the reading. He says this ability, when we've got pure shamatha, complete control of our mind, and we can rest our mind on one thing for as long as we like. So these are what great meditators can do. Those people who've got control of their mind. Then the mind is pliable. They often use that serviceable. Serviceable is a word that's used. So the mind can actually be able to have some clairvoyant activity. But Lama Zopa says we've all done that. We've all actually achieved that level of control of the mind in different past lives, but it hasn't made us enlightened. We're still in samsara, still in this uncontrolled situation. So he says these could be byproducts, but not the end result. So it's also not a pill to be taken, even though it can have an effect of calming and making us feel better, but that's not the overall aim in Buddhist context. Better, but that's not the overall aim in Buddhist context. And so we're using it as a tool on the path to enlightenment. That's the point. There'll be many more points I'll probably make about meditation as the weeks go by. So let's just look at we're already up to 7:05. So we'll just now preparing for we'll do probably a 10-minute mindfulness practice at the end. And it'll be a bit more detailed. We have done one, I know, in the Mindfulness Potential module, but just giving a bit more background here. First of all, the posture. So definitely we have a choice. And the traditional posture, which is the one you've probably seen when you looked at images of the Buddha, cross-leg, the full lotus position, and straight back. The hands are, the right hand is in the left, with the thumbs just touching. I'll just attempt to show that. And that's just placed in the lap. The back is straight, not ramrod straight, but just comfortably straight. Eyes usually closed, but they can also just be gently open, letting some light in. The tongue is just the mouth's closed, but the tongue's just touching the back of the top teeth. Just the back of the palate at the top. That's just if you haven't got a cold, in which case, of course, you've got to breathe through your mouth. And the neck and head's just resting comfortably on the shoulders. So this 7 point. So that's perfect. But we all have usually, particularly as we get older, our difficulty is I can't sit cross-legged anymore. I sit on a chair. So the thing is to adapt to our practical situation. And some people do prefer what Alan Marsh calls the supine position, where you're lying flat, and he encourages that to obtain maximum relaxation. And he says, perhaps you'll go to sleep, but that's okay, because you will probably need to sleep if you go to sleep. And then you can come back and do some meditation after you've had the sleep. So it doesn't always work. So if you want to experiment with the lying down position, it's got the advantage of relaxing the muscles very completely. But still, the spine needs to be straight. That's the main thing. So, so we need to make allowances, chairs, and the main thing is to be able to relax the mind. We need the body to be as comfortable as possible. So the next thing, once we've got the posture that suits us, then we start to just scan the body and just we're releasing any sort of subtle tension. Sometimes we tend to hunch the shoulders, particularly if we're using a computer a lot. So we just scan the body, usually starting from the upper body, consciously soften the muscles around the face and the eyes. Consciously feel whether the shoulders are relaxed or we've got hunching them. And then we can move down and feel the contact of the body with the surface. It could be the chair or the floor. So we feel, instead of holding ourselves on the chair or holding ourselves in place, we're feeling that we're being held by that surface, almost like we're in somebody's hands and we're just surrendering. Surrendering to the earth is what the phrase often used, is surrendering. No more holding on, just letting go. To help achieve this, we can use the out breath. When we breathe out, to feel that we're letting go of any tension in the body, breathing out any tension. And we can add to the physical breathing out tension, to the mental breathing out, visualize that, breathing out any stress and busyness of the mind as well, just using the out breath. Then we just move slowly towards the breath, watching the breath as it always does come and go in the body. As long as we're alive, it's there. But now we're giving it our full attention. And you can watch where our natural place, where the mind goes to watch the breath. It could naturally just go to the nostrils, just the upper lip there, where feel the cool air entering the body and the warm air leaving the body. So that's the most focused sort of way of watching the breath, just there at the upper lip. Another way is to just watch the abdomen rising and falling. So that's said to be very good if we're caught up in our head a lot. And because it's away from the head, the abdomen is lower, we can it can help us to take our mind off our thoughts. So the abdomen just expanding and contracting naturally, not trying to sort of hold the breath in the upper chest, but taking the breath all the way down to the abdomen, allowing it to fill, expand and contract the abdomen. And then the last one is to just watch the whole body with a bit wider focus, just with each breath, movement of the body with the breath, all the way in, all the way out. And another one is to just follow the breath in, follow the breath out. So these are all up to us, really, up to each individual to see what works best. And final thing is to not, if possible, we always sort of have some expectations, but it's better if we can just approach the practice without thinking, oh, well, this has got to work, I need some results, without expectations or goals. Just doing the practice and taking what comes. What will be. Maybe the mind will be calm. You accept the mind as you find it. You might find that this particular day the mind's very calm. You might find that you tend to have a very busy mind, maybe distracted, a bit anxious or whatever. So whatever's happening, you work with what you've got. So no great expectation, and no expectations that you're going to achieve something. And if you don't achieve something, then it's a failure. That's not it. That's not the practice. So just do the practice, and then if we have a good experience, accept that, that's good. If you have a bad experience, that's okay. And keep just, the other thing is to set a time. And even 1 to 3 minutes, if for beginners, just even 1 minute to be able to do a good focused breath meditation for 1 minute is an achievement. And so the idea is to, if possible, set less time than you think you could do the practice for, particularly for beginners. And it says if you leave the practice at a state of mind where you could do more, that's good, stop. And then that'll want you to come, you'll feel you'll feel enthused to come back and do the practice again. Instead of going and doing a dragging up session to a long session so that you burn out and you can't wait for the time to end, that will make it very difficult to come back and do another session. So do short, good, sharp focus sessions rather than dragging out 5, 10, 20 minutes. So people familiar with Alan Wallace's breathing meditation classes, he does 23 minutes. Or was it 24? I think it might be 24. So that's quite a long time. And that's, experienced meditators might sometimes have trouble doing 24 minutes. So in the beginning, short sessions, 1, 3 minutes, or it may be 5 minutes, and then gradually increase the time. Maybe do a couple of minutes a day for the first week, and then second week, maybe 5 minutes. Just see. Particularly, it depends on how much time you've got. And of course, the time of day practice, morning it's said to be the mind is clearer, but some people are more comfortable meditating at night. It's completely up to you. And the main thing is to realize it's a long-term thing. Meditation, like any worthwhile practice, is long-term, and it takes a lot of time to change our mental habits, as we know. We know how difficult it is to just change a habit that we might have about eating or anything that we do in daily life. So changing the mind doing meditation is a long-term practice. Okay, so we're just going to do a session of breath meditation for, we'll do 10 minutes. It's already 16 past, so maybe a bit less than 10 minutes. And I'll lead the meditation in. So we're using the breath as the object, but the other slight variation is that if the mind is feeling very calm, and we manage to sort of feel that sense of stillness in the mind, then just rather than put all the focus on the breath, just feel that you're just letting go of the breath slightly and giving some attention to the breath, but also feeling that space around the breath, the stillness. I've heard the example of, if you're looking at a dot on a page very close up, you sort of see the dot is quite large. And if you move back and see the space around the dot, you feel that sense of spaciousness and the dot becomes smaller. So just an option is to be aware of the breath, but slightly less intense concentration on the breath, and just feel that, if you can, the space around the breath, particularly if the thoughts are quietening. Thoughts will be there, they'll come and go, we're not trying to block them, but we're looking at the breath as a way of focusing the mind on something. rather than following the thoughts. The thoughts will be there, and we'll allow them to just, they come from the mind and dissolve back into the mind. It's just noticing the thoughts and letting them dissolve back. Okay, so we're using the breath as the focus, and then you'll also hear me mention to check, are we still on the breath or have we wandered off? So that's being aware when the mind leaves your object. It's sometimes called introspection or alertness. Okay, trying to catch when the mind leaves the breath and is distracted. Just noticing it, noticing the distraction. Just noticing it will be enough usually to bring us back to the breath. Be patient with those distractions because they're going to happen, and just patiently come back to the breath. Okay, we'll just get comfortable and we'll do maybe 6 or 7 minutes of breath meditation. And I'll guide it for the first couple of minutes and then there'll be silence. Okay, we're just starting our mindfulness of breath meditation by bringing our attention to the body, just making sure the body's comfortable, sitting, lying, a way that we can relax the body. Just checking the upper body, any tension, feeling the weight of the body on the chair or the floor, the gentle pull of gravity into the earth, and surrendering to that pull of gravity into the earth, surrendering to the earth, letting go. We can use the out breath to breathe out any physical tension in the body. Relaxing more deeply with each out breath, letting go. Also breathing out any busyness in the mind. And then gradually bring our attention to the full flow of the in-breath and the out-breath. So we're allowing the breath to enter and leave the body. No need to control, nothing to control or judge. No right or wrong breath. Watching how the body rises and falls with each breath. Maybe we're watching at the nostrils, the movement of the abdomen, each breath, or perhaps the whole body with each breath. And resting our mind there. Just one breath at a time. And then the next. And now and again we check, are we still on the breath? Or have we wandered off? Distracting thought, a sound. That's just a distraction that we notice. Nothing to worry about. Gently let go of that distraction. And patiently come back to the breath. Just staying with the breath. A full flow of the in-breath, full flow of the out-breath. So just relax your attention now. And we'll just end with just a short dedication. This is one that Lama Zopa recommended for the pandemic, just to dedicate any positive imprints we've made on our mind from the practices tonight, and all the practices we've done in the past, we'll do in the future. He says, dedicate to however many sick sentient beings there are. May they quickly be freed from all sickness. May all the sickness without exception of all transmigrating beings never occur again. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time. May all sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, dedicating to that. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much for being there. And thank you, Amy, for your little note. And Mary, I'm glad you made contact. Sorry you had trouble getting on to the website. Hopefully now you have to click on that link on the Vajrayana Institute website, Discovering Buddhism. For those who've missed the beginning of the class, you should be able to just catch up by getting the YouTube podcast on YouTube, hopefully. All right, so have a great night, great week, and look forward to seeing you next week, same time. Take care and stay well. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that note. All the best.